The movie starts with the narrator remembering a terrible event from 35 years ago in a town called North Vernon. Back in October 1987, a girl named Tiffany was brutally killed in her garage on the night of her 16th birthday party. Just 2 days later, another girl, Marissa, was murdered at her family's cabin in the woods. Then, on Halloween night, a third victim, Heather, was killed in the parking lot of an amusement park. All 3 victims were 16 years old and stabbed 16 times, which led people to call the killer the Sweet 16 Killer. After these 3 murders, the killer never struck again, and their identity was never discovered. Over time, the mask worn by the killer became very popular, and every Halloween, people dress up as the Sweet 16 Killer. In the present, we meet a man named Chris Dubasage, a local who runs a podcast about the murders. Every Halloween, he takes visitors on tours of the crime scenes. It seems like this true crime story is the only thing he focuses on in his life. Next, we see a teenage girl named Jamie getting ready to leave for a Halloween concert. Her mother, Pam, comes in and forbids her from going out. Pam was close friends with the 3 girls who were murdered back in 1987, and even after 35 years, she's still afraid of the killer. But Jamie argues that she knows self-defense and can take care of herself. Her father, Blake, watches them fight and offers to drive Jamie to the concert. At the same time, he notices someone texting Pam, but she brushes it off, saying it's just her mom group chat. Later, Blake drops Jamie at her best friend Amelia's house. Amelia's mother, Lauren, is there too, and it turns out she used to go to school with Pam and Blake. Lauren complains about her boss not giving her a break even on Halloween before leaving for work. After that, Blake takes Jamie and Amelia to the concert. Meanwhile, Pam is home alone when a masked man shows up at her door. At first, she thinks he's just someone dressed up for Halloween and offers him candy. But when she notices the knife in his hand, she quickly shuts the door. She calls the police right away, but the man breaks in and attacks her. Pam doesn't give up easily. She's been preparing for something like this ever since she was 16. She fights back and even pulls out a knife of her own, warning the killer that the police will be there any minute. For a moment, he seems nervous and walks away. Pam breathes in relief, but suddenly, he sneaks up from behind and stabs her. He then stabs her 16 times, just like the old murders, until she dies. Jamie is left in shock and heartbroken after her mother's death. Outside the house, Chris, the true crime podcaster, is already streaming live about what happened. The next day at school, the police question Jamie and ask where her father was during the murder. They suspect Blake might be connected since Pam and Chris often texted each other, hinting they could have been having an affair. Jamie, however, refuses to believe it. She defends her dad, saying he would never hurt her mom, and instead blames the police for not catching the killer 35 years ago. Later, Jamie goes to the school science fair, where Amelia is working on a homemade time machine. Amelia explains that her mom, Lauren, once worked on a time travel project but never completed it. Using her mom's old notes, Amelia is determined to make it work. She tells Jamie her plan: if they can travel back in time, maybe they can stop the killer. Jamie adds that if they succeed, her mother would still be alive. Amelia then sets the date to October 27, 1987, the day of the first murder. That evening, Jamie watches Chris's true crime podcast, but her dad tells her to turn it off. He's upset that Chris treats tragic murders, especially the ones from 35 years ago, like entertainment. The next day, Jamie meets Chris at a cafe. She directly asks if he and her mom were having an affair. Chris denies it and explains that Pam was obsessed with solving the Sweet 16 Killer case, which is why they used to text often. He also reveals something shocking: after the last murder 35 years ago, Pam received a note from the killer threatening that she would be the next victim. Later, Jamie returns to the science fair to meet Amelia, still upset by what she learned. Suddenly, the killer shows up and chases her. Jamie runs and hides, but in the process, she stumbles into the time machine disguised as a photo booth. She tries to activate it, but the killer finds her. When he tries to stab her, his knife pierces the booth's control panel, causing a surge of electricity that powers the machine. Before he can strike again, the time machine activates and Jamie is transported back to 1987, on the exact day of the first murder. At first, Jamie panics when she realizes she's really 35 years in the past. But once it sinks in, she's determined to use this chance to save her mother and stop the killings. She quickly places an out-of-order sign on the time machine booth so no one uses it, then asks a nearby woman about Pam. The woman tells her Pam is at school, so Jamie rushes over to the local high school. Pretending to be an exchange student from Canada, she manages to enroll easily thanks to the lazy clerk. In gym class, Jamie is stunned to see Tiffany, Marissa, and Heather, the 3 girls who were murdered in 1987, alive and well. While searching for her teenage mother, she gets the biggest shock. Pam is nothing like the kind and patient woman she knew. Instead, young Pam is a popular, arrogant bully who acts superior to everyone around her. After class, Jamie overhears the group talking about Tiffany's 16th birthday party that night, the very night she's supposed to be killed. Jamie desperately tries to convince them to cancel it, calling the idea lame, but none of the girls take her seriously. Frustrated, Jamie goes to the local police and warns them that someone is going to be killed at Tiffany's house. Instead of taking her seriously, the officers laugh and say there has never been a murder in their town. Left with no choice, Jamie heads back to school and asks the lazy clerk about Amelia's mother, Lauren. She finds Lauren teaching a class and decides to tell her everything. At first, Lauren is confused, but Jamie explains that in the future Lauren's daughter will invent a time machine. She shares the whole story about the murders and the details written in Lauren's secret notebook. To Jamie's surprise, Lauren believes her, since nobody else knows about her hidden notes or her unfinished project. Jamie explains that she needs to stop the killer to save her mother, and that the only way to return to the future is with Wi-Fi. Because Wi-Fi doesn't exist in 1987, she asks Lauren to help find another way. The movie then cuts to 2023, where Blake is desperately searching for Jamie and demanding answers from the police. At that moment, Amelia arrives and admits that Jamie used her time machine to travel back to the past. Naturally, no one believes her, but Chris shows interest in what she says. Meanwhile, in 1987, Lauren and Jamie attend Tiffany's birthday party, hoping to stop the killer. At the party, Jamie meets a teenage boy named Doug, who is often bullied and who will later grow up to be her high school principal. While there, she also notices a handsome guy and feels attracted to him, only to be shocked when she realizes it's her father, Blake. To make things even stranger, she learns that Tiffany is Blake's girlfriend, and that her parents, Blake and Pam, aren't even together yet. Jamie keeps trying to protect Tiffany, Marissa, and Heather, but the girls ignore her warnings and only make fun of her. A little later, Tiffany goes upstairs with a boy. She steps into the bathroom for a moment, but when she comes back, the boy has disappeared. Hearing noises from the closet, she assumes he's hiding and waits for him to come out. Instead, the killer bursts out and walks straight toward her before stabbing her to death. Downstairs, the party music is blasting as Jamie rushes around trying to find Tiffany and keep her safe. Sadly, she's too late. Tiffany's body is discovered in her parents' bedroom. Jamie is horrified but also realizes that she has already changed the past. In the original timeline, Tiffany was killed in the garage, but now she died in the bedroom instead. Afterward, Jamie and Lauren escort Pam home, not wanting her to be alone while a killer is still out there. When Pam asks how Jamie knew the murder was coming, Jamie pretends to be psychic and says she can predict who's going to die. The 3 girls decide to stick together for the night. Jamie then asks Pam if she knows anyone who would want them dead. Pam admits there are plenty of suspects, since she and her friends have bullied lots of people. Meanwhile, in 2023, Amelia is busy working on her time machine, desperate to bring Jamie back. Chris shows up and asks to see the machine, curious about it. While they're talking, Chris suddenly realizes he's been remembering the murders wrong. Tiffany was actually killed in the bedroom, not the garage, as he had always said in his podcast. This proves that Jamie's actions in the past are already changing the future. Shocked, Amelia and Chris look at an old photo from 1987 and clearly see Jamie in it, confirming that she really has traveled back in time. Back in 1987, Jamie tries to stop the group from going to the cabin where the next murder is supposed to happen. She convinces Marissa that they should go to the city instead. Marissa then suggests they go to her parents' condo, and Jamie quickly agrees. Meanwhile, Jamie gets paired up in class with Damon, the awkward boy who's often bullied. She notices his notebook full of strange drawings but doesn't say much. Later, Marissa and the other girls pick Jamie up, and they head to what's supposed to be the condo. To Jamie's horror, it turns out to be the same creepy cabin in the woods where Marissa originally died. Jamie panics and begs them to leave, but more of their friends arrive, and everyone decides to stay and party. Nervous, Jamie lays out some safety rules for the cabin, but no one takes her seriously. That night, One of the boys teases Jamie for being a buzzkill and locks her out of the cabin. While looking for a way back in, she peeks through a window and sees Heather unconscious on a bed. At the same time, Marissa and a guy step outside, leaving Heather alone inside. The killer, who was already hiding in the closet, suddenly steps out and cranks the radio volume up. Heather wakes up just in time to run, but the killer chases her, throws her down the stairs, and stabs her to death. This changes history. Heather dies instead of Marissa. The others try to fight back but are no match for the killer, who escapes into the woods. Shaken, the teens rush to the police station to report the murder. Jamie even brings the killer's blood as evidence, but the officers don't know what DNA is and brush her off. The next day at school, Jamie talks with Damon and realizes he's just a harmless nerd with no connection to the killer. Soon, Doug shows up and tells them to get back to class. After the attack, Jamie and the group decide to fight back. Since Jamie knows Marissa is supposed to be the killer's last victim, they plan to use her as bait and catch him when he shows up. Meanwhile, Lauren works on powering up the time machine. She decides to use a popular town attraction as a giant energy source so Jamie can travel back to the future. At the same time, in 2023, Chris continues helping Amelia repair their own version of the machine. The story jumps to Halloween night. Marissa is walking through the amusement park, unaware that the killer is following her. She steps inside a haunted house attraction, where Jamie and the rest of the group are already waiting, ready to trap him. Soon, the killer shows up, and a fight breaks out. The group struggles to hold their ground, but eventually Jamie stabs the killer. Just as he's about to stab her back, one of her friends sneaks up and fatally stabs him instead. When they unmask the killer, it's revealed to be their own classmate, Doug. The truth finally comes out. A year earlier, a girl named Trish died in a car accident. Tiffany, Marissa, and Heather had bullied her for years, calling her Fat Trish. One night, they invited her to a sleepover at Tiffany's house, planning to get her drunk so she would spill details about a rumored affair with their coach. Even when Trish started crying and begging them to stop, the girls kept pushing her to drink more. Upset and drunk, Trish left and later crashed her car, dying in the accident. What the girls didn't know was that Trish had been dating Doug. Heartbroken and furious, Doug took revenge by putting on a mask and killing the bullies one by one. Hearing this, Jamie is disgusted with her mother, Pam, for being part of such cruelty. But Pam explains that she wasn't even there that night. She had fought with Tiffany and skipped the sleepover. Marissa also confirms Pam's story, saying she wasn't involved in Trish's death. Jamie is left confused. If Pam wasn't guilty, why did Doug leave her a threatening note years later? And why was she eventually killed in 2023? Before they can figure it out, another masked killer suddenly appears, stabbing Marissa to death. This second killer chases Jamie, killing Chris's father along the way. His death even gets captured on live TV. Jamie and the others rush toward the time machine, which is finally ready. Lauren warns Jamie that once the ride starts, she has to stay inside no matter what. If she doesn't, the force will throw her out and kill her instantly. As they talk, the new killer shows up and attacks. Jamie urges Lauren to escape, which she does, and then Jamie powers on the machine. Suddenly, Pam shows up to help Jamie, and a brutal fight breaks out inside the time machine ride. As the ride spins faster, Jamie, Pam, and the masked killer are slammed against the walls. The killer, however, manages to move through the force and goes after Pam, stabbing her once. Jamie shoves her mother out of the ride to save her, and in the chaos, the killer's mask is ripped off, revealing Chris from 2023. Chris admits the shocking truth: he never knew Doug was the original Sweet 16 killer. He murdered Pam just to keep the legend alive after 35 years, faking the warning note to stir up drama and give himself more podcast material. He confesses that he was tired of living in his father's shadow, always being compared to him, so he killed him too. Chris then lunges at Jamie, and the two fight fiercely. In the end, Jamie gains the upper hand, firing a nail gun at him before kicking him into the spinning machine, which kills him instantly. After this, Jamie is transported back to the present, arriving the day before Halloween in 2023. To her relief, Pam is alive and happily married to Blake. Lauren also remembers everything that happened in the past and explains to Jamie that this timeline is different from the one she left. She even wrote a book documenting all the changes. Jamie is then introduced to a man who enters the house. Lauren explains that in this new timeline, Pam and Blake got together earlier than before, which means Jamie now has a 34-year-old brother named Jamie, and her own name has changed to Khalid. Lauren also shares that she is now a bioengineer, while Amelia is still Khalid's best friend. As for Chris, in this timeline he has been living in a monastery in India, traumatized by watching his father's death on live TV, without realizing it was actually himself from another timeline.